So, Hare Krishna everybody, we have been asked to speak about Srila Prabhupada, something very natural for us. We do it always, and every time we have a feeling, at least I have a feeling, of never being able to say enough, never being able to say something complete, because Srila Prabhupada has been for us so much. He has changed our life completely. If we stop a moment and think, just we close the eyes and we close everything in our life, and we go back to the days before Srila Prabhupada came, and then we see the difference. And happened to me, probably my brothers also happened the same thing, that we think and feel what my life would have been without Srila Prabhupada. What would I be now? What I would have been doing now? So I don't know the others, but if I think that, I just tremble. I just feel scared to death, because I cannot imagine any other life. Surely no other more beautiful life than this. We had a wonderful life. And our life before meeting Srila Prabhupada, our life was not so wonderful at all. And the future in front of us was terrible. Was terrible not because materially, at least I come from a good family, medium high class, economically and everything, so my future was already organized. I was 18 when I reached the Prabhupada, now I am 61. So my life was already organized, but everything was so empty, so useless. I couldn't fathom my life in that way. 1972, I heard for the first time the name Bhaktivedanta Swami, a name for me impossible to remember or to understand. I heard the Mahamantra Hare Krishna on the radio, because there was no Hare Krishna movement at the time in the country where I was born in Italy. So the movement in Italy arrived at the end of 1973. 1972, there was nothing, and Italy was a country where freedom was an idea. It was a fact, but not a cultural fact. Because things could be done, but they weren't facilitated to do. Like new culture, new music was impossible to find in the TV. The Beatles or the Rolling Stones or anything was unheard in TV, on the radio. But there was one program every day, which was called Prabhupada, and that was the only program where some kind of something different was allowed. Prabhupada means for you young people. So I was always hearing this, and the speaker, they were speaking about Hare Krishna movement and the guru of the Hare Krishna movement. Also there were some newspaper article talking about the Hare Krishna in Virginia taking icy shower at 2 o'clock in the morning, which was terrible. But at the time we were coming out of the hippie culture, so it wasn't so terrible for me. It was actually the proof that the Hare Krishna movement was actually something different. was trying to change. Because the new generation, they wanted change. Doesn't matter if the change would be for better or for worse. What it mattered for us was different, and we don't want this. So taking icy shower at 2 o'clock in the morning for people sounded like a terrible. For me, it was like, oh, this is good. This is the proof that this is actually something different. I tell you, if in the temple would have been bad, they probably would have become a devotee. Because I loved sleeping on the floor. So Srila Prabhupada is a transcendental personality. He's not limited by his body or by the years he stayed with us in this world. So just like everyone is a pure at heart, they can still connect with Srila Prabhupada. He also came in our life before we actually met him. Or so it happened to me. Way before I physically met Srila Prabhupada. When I did met Srila Prabhupada, I spent an entire week with him. And with him, I was a young boy, 20 years old. I was just a guard of his door. I was a big devotee. I was just a young brahmachari. That I was supposed to, I will tell you. So he came in my life in a way that I never told, because this is inside the realm of internal relationship, internal realization. So it's something very private. It shouldn't be discussed. I don't think so, because either you don't believe me and you think that I am either weird, or if you do believe me, you don't have any proof that I'm telling you the truth. So what's the point of telling me? So better to keep it for ourselves as our hidden treasure in our heart. But what I can say, that Srila Prabhupada wasn't a man, that Srila Prabhupada was a transcendental personality. Wasn't limited by the years, by his body. He could write to his disciples in ways that is inexplicable. So I will start. We speak some 5-10 minutes more. Then Prabhupada can speak, and then I will tell you more if we have time. The Hare Krishna movement was opened in Rome at the end of 1973, and there were very few temples in Europe. The closest temple was in Paris. There was no temple in Spain. There was a temple in Germany, in Amsterdam. But a couple of devotees, one devotee you know very well, Anandjaya Prabhu, arrived. He was one of the first devotees to arrive in Rome at the end of 1973. And they found a nice villa just 150 meters from my home. You imagine, it's big town. I mean, Italy, we are in India. Italy is not so big in your perspective, but it's a big country. So they opened a temple in my city, 150 meters from my home. And I was already chanting Hare Krishna. It was already a couple of years that I was chanting. And the devotees opened the temple, and in December, January of 1974, they installed Gonitai deities in February 1974, and Srila Prabhupada came in Italy, 1974. April. At the end of April 1974. So the devotees, they organized this big conference for him, and they put posters all over the city. Big posters and small posters. With this, again, this name I couldn't read, you know? Actually, by Desi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It's possible name. For us now it's so normal. But if you don't know anything about India or Indian culture, it's a very difficult name to learn. But his face was transcendental. Again, we go back to the realm of intimate relationships. So I was seeing Srila Prabhupada every day when I was going to work on my bus, and there was a big traffic jam. Around 8 o'clock, it's like, it takes 1 hour to do 500 meters. So at one moment the bus stopped, and in front of me there was a traffic light, and there were so many people. We were like this. Actually, we didn't need it, the last minute, because we couldn't fall anywhere. There was no space to fall anywhere. But we were doing just because we were supposed to be in the bus like this, and he stopped. He stopped for 10-15 minutes, just in front of me. There was a Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada with his deep black eyes looking directly. So for 15 minutes I had anything else to do. They just looking at Prabhupada, and the bus wouldn't start. And I was there looking to my spiritual master. And that it was very profound, very deep, something that I will never forget. I didn't know the Hare Krishnas. I knew this person. So when I would see the devotees, actually Srila Prabhupada gave a conference in the same hotel where I was working. 3 days before, I got fired, and I couldn't go see. I got a big fight. It was just too much, so I couldn't go to see. But Srila Prabhupada was 100 meters from me. I didn't know that I would see the Hare Krishna walking around. But I didn't know that Srila Prabhupada and the Hare Krishna was the same thing. I didn't like the Hare Krishna very much. I liked Srila Prabhupada. So the first day that I entered into the temple in August 1974, I saw Srila Prabhupada on my right and the Hare Krishnas on my left, and then the Hare Krishnas are okay. because my spiritual, the one who I knew was my spiritual master, was very spiritual master. So I think what I will do now, I will leave to Mahatma Prabhu to say whatever he wants to say, and then I will take it from where I left. Tell you my personal encounter with you.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Vishnu Prabhupada Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Acharya Tarise Sasanyavadi My name is Mahatma Das, and I am from America. And the first temple where I grew up in Los Angeles wasn't 150 meters away, but it was 6 blocks away. So not as fortunate as Manana Prabhu, but close. So when you said that, I was thinking how Prabhupada has placed his disciples all over the West, and then he comes and picks them up. That story of you looking at Prabhupada's face, that's like classic. Prabhupada picking up his disciples. So, a few weeks ago I read something that never shocked me, but it really impregnated my heart. It was said by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta that, as we know in the material world, we don't really know what love is. It's an imitation. We don't have a real sense of love, the sense of purity, pure selfless giving, as in the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, your first connection or experience of love is when you meet your spiritual master. Isn't it? And I like to tell the story of a mother who's coming to the temple and watching her son clean the temple. And she's trying to figure out why he's doing this, because she could never get him to clean at home. As much as she tried, he was more or less a slob. You know, slob? Just slob means messy. And now he's cleaning, and he's very happily cleaning. why is he cleaning? I could never get him to clean. Because there's love. And the other day the ladies were speaking. One of the ladies, I forget who, I believe, said something which many devotees say in reflecting back on their days as young devotees, not very Krishna conscious, but very enthusiastic, how they did things that today not as adults, but today as older people, they have a difficult time figuring out how they did that when they were younger. But there's an answer. It's called love. Because the love for Prabhupada was so great, therefore the inspiration was so great. And when to do something great, you need a lot of inspiration, isn't it? Even if you're good at something, if you want to do something great, you have to be highly inspired. So, somehow or other, Srila Prabhupada extracted love from the hearts of his disciples so deeply and so intensely that more or less we were willing to do anything for him, whatever it was that we had to do. And because he was moving very quickly to spread Krishna consciousness and very fearlessly, we also tried to do the same thing. So, when speaking about Prabhupada, I like to talk about the effect Prabhupada had on me. What it was like to be in his presence, and how it personally affected me, and I think how I was affected. We were all affected. And I specifically remember whenever I was in Prabhupada's presence, I was overcome by what I could call an insatiable and endless desire to surrender. And that desire had absolutely nothing to do with my level of Krishna consciousness, which at that point wasn't very high. But the intensity of my desire to surrender was like equivalent to a very high level of Krishna consciousness, but I'm on a very low level. So it doesn't make sense, does it? Why would you have a high level of desire if you're on a low level? That was the effect of Prabhupada. That sometimes people would come, they would see Prabhupada, they would come inspired, and I was just talking to Guru Kripa, because Guru Kripa joined a few months after I joined, so we were in San Francisco together as young brahmacharis. He said something like, I came on Sunday, I came back on Monday, and then I moved in on Tuesday. Which is not uncommon in those days. And when he came, Prabhupada wasn't there. Prabhupada came April, May, June. Prabhupada came like 4 or 5 months after he came. But because the devotees were so inspired by Prabhupada, so inspired to make self-sacrifice, when people joined, they immediately, without even meeting Prabhupada, would do the same thing. It's like amazing. It's like, now the word surrender, everybody's like allergic to that word, isn't it? Surrender, don't say that word. It's not healthy. It makes me feel weird, isn't it? But in those days, it was like, you didn't have to talk about surrender. It was just what you were doing. And so, it was that the presence of a pure devotee extracting from our hearts this very deep desire to give ourselves to Krishna. Just like the story of Bali Maharaj, Shukracharya said, don't give Vamana anything because he's going to take it all away. And Vamana said, let him take it away. Bali said, let him take it away. I want to give it. Shukracharya said, don't give it. So they're going back and I want to give it, don't give it. I want to give it, don't give it. No, he'll take it away. I want to give it all. So he wanted to surrender. He just wanted to give it, even knowing that he was going to lose it all. And it was like that with Prabhupada. I'll tell you a funny story, just to kind of put this in context. For us, in America, we started a few years earlier than Europe. So I think our program started a little earlier. So our traveling party started in like 1970, 71. By 72 or 73, it was kind of a regular function. And I was living in Los Angeles in 1972, and a traveling party of 4 or 5 brahmacharis in a van were loading the van. And then I saw they were loading boxes. It wasn't book boxes. So I just asked one of the devotees, I said, "What are you loading?" He said, "I'm loading peanuts and raisins." I said, "Why?" He said, "That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this way, we don't have to cook, and we can just take the peanuts and raisins with us, and to maximize the amount of time we'll be on the street." And he was like, "Okay, whatever." And you know, looking at that seems kind of crazy, doesn't it? But yeah, we were crazy, but we didn't know it. We just wanted to maximize our service. So austerity, like you were saying, 2 in the morning, take a cold shower. Somehow or other, for us, it was like if there was an opportunity to do austerity, it was an advantage. It was like that means I could do more for Prabhupada, or I could be more like Prabhupada. So it wasn't that we ran from it, but more that we embraced it, because Prabhupada was extracting from us this desire to want to give more. So if there was an opportunity to give more, which meant eating peanuts and raisins, and being on the street at least 12 hours a day distributing books, that was our pleasure. That's what Prabhupada extracted from us, the desire to do it. And one time Prabhupada said, don't force anyone to become a devotee. Don't force anyone to move to the temple. But just give them knowledge, and then by knowledge they'll want to do austerity. So you had this very enthusiastic group of very young and ignorant devotees, ignorant both materially and spiritually, but very surrendered and very austere and very happy to be austere. I'll tell you a funny story. This is I don't know. I think it's funny. So I'm a new devotee. I joined in January. And at that time, one of my friends, Bhakta Howard, was living in the temple. Bhakta Howard grew up maybe 5-6 blocks from where I grew up, and went to more or less the same schools. And Bhakta Howard was an intellectual and very enthusiastic. He later became Hridayananda. And his program was stay up till 11 o'clock at night reading Bhagavatam. In those days, no one knew what the Bhagavatam was. Nobody read it. He was the only one. And then, get up at 4 o'clock, so sleep like 5 hours. And I said, all right. He's like my older brother, I'll follow him. So I'll sleep 5 hours. So before I joined, maybe I was sleeping 10 hours. I was a college student, right? 10. That's standard for college students. So you go from 10 hours to 5 hours. You're like running on half the sleep, So basically, as soon as you sit down, you count to 3 and you're asleep. And that was just normal, and nobody thought maybe we're tired or anything. And as soon as we got in the Sankirtan van, we count to 5 and everyone was asleep. That was just, you have the same problem. This is you go in it, banging heads on the wall, and that was just like normal. And so there was a feast day, and we were in one temple, and we went to another temple that was about 10 miles away. We were in Berkeley and went to San Francisco. And we had a big feast. And the temple president said, let's take a little rest. after the feast, and then we'll go out and Harinam. So the feast ended like 1, we'll take a little rest. And our programs go on Harinam every day, so we'll like go on Harinam at 2. And everybody woke up about 5:30 because no one had slept. And I woke up at 5:30 and I got up and I said, wow, it's the first time since I joined that I actually feel good. I was like really excited. It was the first time I wasn't tired. So it kind of gives you a context of what's going on. Like how far can you go to the edge without like your body breaking down? Jayananda Prabhu, he was down to 4 hours. He was 11 to 3. That was his plan. So it was like, that was the mood. How far can you go before your body collapses? So, as I said, when you first meet a pure devotee, then you get this first glimpse of love. So, I met Srila Prabhupada in December of 1969, and I had decided at that time I was going to become a devotee, but I wasn't chanting 16 rounds yet or following the 4 regular principles. I mean, some days I was and some days I wasn't, but I had decided to become a devotee, and I had 10 weeks earlier I had come into touch with Krishna consciousness. So, just so you understand, it's about 10 weeks ago I read Bhagavad Gita, and now I'm going to see Prabhupada. When I saw Prabhupada, I started crying. If you're a 19-year-old young man, the only time you've ever cried is when your girlfriend left you. Isn't it? Or somebody stole your pot or something. I mean, your marijuana. But it had to be something pretty traumatic, like your girlfriend running off with your best friend. Then you might cry. But otherwise, I don't remember crying. It's unusual. So here I'm seeing Prabhupada and I'm crying. And I had read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and obviously it was changing my life. So when I met him, it was very impactful because here's the person that just did something, as you were saying, just did something to my life that nobody ever did and nobody ever could do. And just what he did was impossible for anyone to do. And so the impact of that presence was so overwhelming that I broke down, and many devotees, I've seen many devotees said the same thing. When they met Prabhupada, they just broke down. You cry when your emotions become so strong, you don't know what to do with them, and this is for men. Women, it's easier. It's more natural to cry, but men, it takes a lot more, right? So for a man to cry, it just means he's overwhelmed. And something is very beautiful, or something is very intense, or something is very profound, or there's a sense of something dramatic happening in their life, and then we break down. And so that was Prabhupada's presence. Another aspect of Prabhupada's presence, aside from bringing out the surrender, was his ability. I don't want to say it's an ability, but by his nature, in his presence, everybody would be happy. And it didn't matter if you were not happy 5 minutes earlier. When Prabhupada came, you became happy. It was like, he just smiled and that was it. Wasn't it? One smile. Yeah, it was like wherever you were thinking, whatever was going on in your life, how good or bad it might be, Prabhupada would come, and that smile, it like washed away all the Maya. And not were you happy, you were extremely blissful. Like in, Jai Prabhupada! Like, very excited. Like when I first met Prabhupada, and very overwhelmed, because you're in the presence of someone who is not like anybody else, who is extraordinary. And people say, could you describe what Prabhupada's life like? And I say, he wasn't like anybody. I don't know how you can relate to it. Like all of us are little particles. Maybe if you put all of us in a room you'd get a sense of what Prabhupada was like. But in one person, it's very difficult to describe what it's like. But the experience of being with Prabhupada was one of very deep satisfaction just to sit in his presence. I can tell you personally, I had the opportunity to be in Prabhupada's presence in his room, in his garden, on his morning walks. And I can say honestly, in those situations, I did not hear one thing he said. You have that experience? It's just because his presence was so uniquely amazing, overwhelming, attractive, that there's nobody like him, that I just sit there like this, like I was watching a movie. Like, yeah, stunned. Like, he would talk and just, and there'd be a fly, and he'd go. So you're like, wow, did you see the way he removed that fly? Take some while. Say something, wait for an answer, look around. And like, nobody does that. Prabhupada always had his head up. Someone said, why do you always have your head up, something like Professor? Because no one can defeat us. We will never be defeated. So, and another thing that was very common about Srila Prabhupada is when, in any situation he was in, someone would ask a question or there'd be a circumstance, and then we would think, okay, what's Prabhupada going to say now? Because it was like a suspense movie, you know. Someone asks a question. What about meditation? What is he going to say? Meditation means to chant Hare Krishna. You know, you're thinking in your mind what he's going to say. And most of the time, he would say something completely different than you thought he was going to say, and completely different from what he said last time. What is this bogus meditation? You know, like, okay. Or whatever he would say. And many times we would ask questions, and it was like, kind of like going to Las Vegas. You just didn't know, you know. You pull the, on the slot machines, pull the slide, I guess it's called. You pull the arm and wait to see what happens. So, it was just very, everything, every move and every word that would come out of his mouth was kind of, he didn't know what it was going to be. Like one time, I lived in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada, at that point, when I was living there, he stayed there for 3 months. So he got to see Prabhupada a lot, and when anyone would come out of Prabhupada's room, he would always ask them what Prabhupada said. Right? So one time, I think it was Chiriko Swami, he came out of Prabhupada's room, and I said, so what did Prabhupada say? What was he talking about? And he said, well, Prabhupada was explaining to us how they build ships inside bottles. You ever see them? Like whiskey bottles or something? You ever seen that? Okay. Achyutananda Swami tells a story. Prabhupada's talking about, sometimes he would talk about things in the material world. The British did this, and then that, and this, politics, this. And one devotee, he was a little bit fanatical. So he was uneasy. He thought, my spiritual master is falling into Maya, and this whole group is falling into Maya. And he was like really worried, what's going on? So he started talking, but Krishna was the greatest king. You know, trying to interject something. Prabhupada said, why are you talking about Krishna? We're talking about Maya. So, you know, you could never, it was just, you never knew what he would say, how he would act. I mean, it was just like, it was always like Krishna's Navayona. It was always ever fresh and new and exciting. And every moment with Prabhupada was just, it was like a new moment. You get to go on a morning walk, what's he going to say? Questions would be asked. You know, one morning walk in Mayapur in 1975, He said, you know, he just came back. He said, what did Prabhupada say? He said, there's going to be a war. You know, so Prabhupada says there's going to be a war. That means there's going to be a war. Wow. Just like, you know, what amazing things will Prabhupada say next? So that's my experience with Prabhupada. The surrender, just pulling out of my heart, the blissfulness of being as an association, and the excitement of never knowing what to expect, and also never knowing Prabhupada's next plan. What he's revealed his new plan. Now we're going to do this. What? You know? Now it's dioramas. Now it's, you know, buses. You know, then whatever it was. It would just reveal some new plan. And he would say, well, he said, I can't tell you everything I'm going to do because you won't understand it yet. So he had everything planned out. And we knew at a certain date he's going to reveal the next plan and the strategy. And for us, the strategy was the strategy to take over the world. That's what we thought. Here's the person who's going to change the world. You know, next year he'll reveal the next strategy, the next level, the next phase. And we'll just execute it and it will happen. And we'll live this amazingly exciting life watching the world change because we're just doing what Prabhupada says. These monkey soldiers are, you know, running out there, you know, sleeping 5 hours, falling, standing up over in Bhagavatam class, and, you know, eating peanuts and raisins 3 times a day, and, you know, running their bodies down into the, you know, hospital, and blissfully changing the world. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah. So Mananath will speak some, and then we'll speak some more also.
We have time until 6. Still the time. We are supposed to speak until 6. That's the rule. 7. Okay. Yeah, this is. I will tell you now one effect of speaking about Srila Prabhupada is that you start hating time, you know, because you never want to stop. And if I am allowed a joke, don't give up your microphone to a Prabhupada disciple when he speaks about Prabhupada, because he will not give you back. That's wonderful. Okay, so what to say? So I want to spend some 5 minutes to put into the perspective of what the spiritual master actually is in our life. Is that it's something similar to if you are in a ship and you don't know how to, you know, how to drive. You are with alone or with other people. Oh, there is no doubt that you are going to crash or something. So you need a captain. You need somebody who knows how to drive it, what to do in a ship. And so this is what Srila Prabhupada was to us, to everybody in this world. He was a very capable captain who knew how to live in this world. Because people take birth and stay some time and then they die and never learn how to live. They think that this life is all in all they get to do is to enjoy a little bit, most of the time being dissatisfied, actually always, but sometimes they think they enjoy, sometimes they they realize that they are not happy, they suffer. But nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you how to live. The spiritual master is someone who tells you how to live. What are the values that actually matter in life? Our parents told us that you had to study, take a degree, then go to work, take a family, and then what? And then you become older like us, and then you die, like one day we all die. That's all. That's life. Yes, that is not life. That's nonsense. There's no value whatsoever. So we were looking for some capable, knowledgeable captain or the ship to tell us what are the values of life, what actually matters, what is important in life. And I remember in my first days as a brahmachari, as a devotee in the temple, the first thing that I heard was actually was my first time in the temple. And I was a magazine, it was the only literature in my native language. It was all this magazine, and there was one phrase: "You are not this body, you are the spirit soul." We heard this phrase for so many times. This phrase is like, something that we don't pay any attention. But for me, it was like a nuclear explosion. Nobody ever told me that. It is such a deep truth. It can change your life. Because if you accept that you're not this body, everything you do for the body is just useless. Almost useless. It's not that we don't care about this body, because we eat and we take medicine and we try to live as comfortable as possible, but no more than that. Materialistic atheists of various types, they spend their whole life. So when Srila Prabhupada, because there was one article from Srila Prabhupada, told me that, it was like a nuclear explosion. I'm not this body, I am a spirit soul. Wow. Beautiful. It was like a voice coming from the centuries, from the wisdom, some places, unbelievable places, so populated by sages and divinities who say, you are not this body, this place. Unbelievable, beautiful. So anyway, since I hate time, since my time is limited, I want to get telling you about my meeting with Srila Prabhupada. Because when I met Srila Prabhupada, I was already first and second initiated. Because Srila Prabhupada came in Italy in '94, and then he never came back. It was the only time. And we were young brahmacharis. In 1975, arrived a letter. I still have the original letter in my hand. The BBT archives have tried for decades to take the original, it's like, I give a copy. I never give you. I have the few personal things signed. Srila Prabhupada, in this letter was saying that everybody who has a degree, who is basically an intellectual type of person, should come to Vrindavan for the college. It was around 75, it was winter time, it was cold, maybe February. So I said, I want to go. And the GBC told me, no, Srila Prabhupada said you should go. I paraphrase. Prabhupada said you should go, but actually wants you to stay here. So, because, we had just started our community in Italy, you are one of the first Italian devotees, and you should stay here to preach. And I said, here he's saying, Prabhupada, this is his signature. He's saying that he wants to do a college in Vrindavan, and he wants everybody to go. I want to go. No, you should stay. At the time, we were very obedient. It's not like today. At that time, I don't even think about disobeying. It was basic. When the temple president or any authority will tell you something, just do it. And I said, okay, maybe I don't understand. Maybe in the middle of this world, everybody should come to Vrindavan. Maybe it's written somewhere, that I should not go to Vrindavan. So I stayed. And 2 years after, 1976, friends, Nouvelle Mayapur, this is a place that we still have. Finally came a big thunder saying, Prabhupada is coming, Prabhupada is coming. So everybody, all the devotees started, like ants. You see when you touch something near an ant, I would say, grave, and everybody started to move like this, So the brahmachari, we were about 100 brahmacharis at the time. So everybody started to walk, started to do it, started to talk, Prabhupada. nobody's coming. So the temple president started to make the plans to go, from Rome to Paris. Today it's not a big deal, but at that time it was a big deal. There was no highway direct to France. The temple wasn't in Paris. It was midway between Paris and Lyon. It was in the middle of nowhere. So, and we didn't even know where the place was. Just a couple of devotees knew where it was. So the temple president organized everything and he said, okay, we have, our Gornitai had the Radha Krishna standard. So we couldn't just leave the deities. Two devotees could do the cooking and offering and everything. And he said, okay, you, me, and another one, you should stay. Next time, Prabhupada will soon come, so next time you come. I said, no, one moment, and he said, 75, I said, go to India, you are cheating me again. No, don't worry. Next time you go, you are expert, you are started to glorify because you watch the service, about the service. And then everybody went. And me and this other god brother of mine, whose name is Mickey, I already dear friend. Long time I don't see him. We were left alone in the temple with Gornitai. I was wonderful, because I wanted to see Srila Prabhupada. Finally, there was a third time that I missed Srila Prabhupada. There was a fourth time, because Srila Prabhupada came to London in '75, and I wanted to go with a group of brahmacharis, but they said Sankirtan was more important. It was the fourth time that I would have missed Srila Prabhupada. So at that time I couldn't take it anymore, and I spoke to my god brother, who is a big guy, big Italian, big voice, much of that. I said, okay, can you do everything yourself? Cooking, and we had full of offerings the whole day. And he said, don't worry, I can do everything, I don't need you, go. But are you sure? I said, yes, okay. So I called one of our friends. He had a very old car, and I said, let's go. He said, where? France. I said, you're crazy. We'll never make it to France. No, we'll make another Singha, Chaitanya. I pulled down all the philosophy of the Puranas. So he became a drunk with my word. I said, okay, let's go. And then, in the middle way, he said, where are we going? France, I said. I was so confused, I didn't remember where we were going. So after 2 days, we arrived in France. It was a big castle. At least I remember it. And at that time, everybody was already arrived. We were one of the last ones arrived. Srila Prabhupada was already there. And the services were divided by nationality. So the French would cook, and the Germans would do the cleaning, and the Italians were doing the security. So there was only one place, one service left for me, and I arrived. And I asked, at that time it was not like now, you arrive at the temple, you do whatever you want. At that time you go to the temple commander and say, well, what can I do? There was not something, it was an obligation. I don't remember when the devotee arrived at the temple and just going in the ashram and sleeping. You arrive, you go to the temple president, well, what is my service? So I went to the temple commander with my friend, my dear friend, the Greek god brother, and I asked, well, what can I do? He said, okay, we just have a very nice service, a nectar for you. Do you want it? I said, yeah, I've not been sleeping eating for 2 days. But that's our life. Our life was being servant, and our spiritual master was there. Our spiritual master at that time, maybe I shouldn't say it's not allowed spiritual master today because maybe it's too gross. But Srila Prabhupada was something much bigger than the images of the gurus today. It was a deity, was a walking deity for us. That's the way we used to see Srila Prabhupada. So, and he was a deity. He was a pure devotee. He was a man who came from the spiritual world to save us. So he said, okay, you come with me, and he said, this is a Srila Prabhupada room, and then you stay here. And you had two services. One, Srila Prabhupada hates noise, especially banging on the doors. You know, we were young brahmachari, 18, 19, can you imagine? I was I'm running and screaming. You should always do shh like that, and don't make noise, and don't scream, don't yell. And I was there for 7 days. And after 12 hours and 2 days, not sleeping or eating, I still hadn't seen Srila Prabhupada. And at that time, at that room of Srila Prabhupada, you know, now the time is so far that it became like unreal. I don't, maybe I'm inventing everything. It becomes like a legend after 40 years. So there was two doors, one opening like this, another one opening from the inside of Srila Prabhupada room. And he had these servants, and he has the GBCs coming, and sannyasis, and the cooks, and everything going in, going out, but they never forgot to close all the doors. So after many hours, finally, while Srila Prabhupada was taking prasadam, at the end, Adikesh, the time I was in the sannyasi, forgot to close both the doors, and that was my service, because I had to close the doors, Srila Prabhupada doors. So at that time, I said, no, I'm not going to close the doors, I'm going inside. I want to see Srila Prabhupada. I never saw Srila Prabhupada. I went inside, and again, we are stepping inside once more in the realm of magic, in the realm of something that is not a part of this world. It's like a step inside the spiritual world. At least so I perceived it. And everything was wonderful, and I had this transcendental personality that was sitting and taking prasadam, and he would separate the chapatis like this without touching with his 2 fingers like this, you know. And then he would take the piece of chapatis and mix up, I don't know, whatever he was mixing up, and then taking this thing and without touching the lips, just doing like that, you know, letting fall into his mouth and then chewing with such a grace. He was like a king, he was an aristocratic, the whole movement. And he was also, nothing was arrogant in his looks. He was his clothes was cotton clothes, it was normal, but everything, I don't want to talk. Anyway, at the end, after some time, he saw me, and he looked at me, and he said, what can I do for you? I was 20 years old, very shy, still very shy. Very shy. So this big, huge, transcendental personality talking and asking something for me, it was really too much. I couldn't take it. I just went on my back, paying obeisance, 4 hands, like a stupid cat, going out without answering. Closing the door before lifting my head again. So how it is possible, like Mahatma Prabhu was kind of introducing the topic of the reactions that we had in Srila Prabhupada presence. It's very difficult to say it. It's very difficult to describe it, because you may think that we are just a bunch of kids, emotional kids, but you are free. Actually, you have all the right to think in this way, you know. In my heart, I don't think we were just a bunch of emotional kids. I think we actually were in front of somebody coming from the transcendental world that would arise from our... Don't forget that we are hippies. That was our culture. And what is the hippie culture? Hippie culture means no rules, okay? Nobody higher than me, free intoxications, free mixing with women, and everything free. You know, and there are people who say that Srila Prabhupada is so much success because he arrived in the West just in the right time. It was the worst time possible because we were just coming out of a culture telling us what we should do. That we had a father who is more than us, a mother who is a senior, that we should learn from somebody. We were just coming out from that culture. So that was definitely not the case. That Srila Prabhupada is success because it was the right time. It wasn't. The worst. So Srila Prabhupada is success because he was empowered. That Krishna gave him the power to preach and to change the world. And our emotions, it might be emotional, it might be sentimental, it might be whatever you are free again, but in our heart we know that it was real. And this is the only explanation. Anyway, I have much more. Maybe I should tell another pastime. Srila Prabhupada's time during the days. And yeah. Okay, so after 5 days, 4 or 5 days that I was there, one of my god brother told me, okay, I will substitute you, and don't worry, I will give you back the service. So you won't give the service to anybody because he will not give you back. Okay? But that brahmachari was younger than me. I made him a devotee. So I had some authority on him, and I would forcibly take him out in front of Srila. So I went to take some rest. So after a couple of hours, temple president came up. Prabhupada is coming out. Prabhupada is coming out. So Prabhupada was not healthy during those days. His health was already deteriorating. After 1 year, he will leave us. A little more than 1 year. It was, I think, June or July at the time. Srila Prabhupada disappeared in November, so less than 1 year and a half. So his hands was swollen, and he evidently couldn't talk very clearly. Sometimes he would stop for a couple of minutes during Bhagavatam class, etc. He was obviously not very healthy. So he came out, and there was this huge kirtan. We were hundreds, I don't remember how many. Basically all the European devotees were there. Maybe few. Some from Britain didn't come because Prabhupada was going to London after France. But we were many devotees. It was a huge kirtan, and Prabhupada was walking. And this is another impression that all of us had of the way Prabhupada was walking. Again, we enter into the world of something that you have the right to not believe it. It was like if Prabhupada wasn't touching the ground. That was our perception. It was like he was taller than everybody else. He wasn't tall physically. He was quite short, you know. But he was like majestic in his persona. So it was like Govardhan is how many kilometers high? You don't say, maybe 20 meters now at this tallest point. So we have a transcendental personality, and then you have the physical personality, the one that you can perceive. So the way we were perceiving Srila Prabhupada wasn't exactly in his physical dimension, but we were kind of starting to perceive there was something more in his personality. So he was walking and big kirtan, etc. I still have a picture of me. You will find it on the internet. A picture with me with Srila Prabhupada, taken the way while he was talking. He was walking, etc. So he arrived at a certain point. He wanted to sit down on the grass, and he asked to a devotee, "Are there any snakes?" He was coming from India. You don't, at the time, maybe now you can do it, but at the time you don't sit down anywhere in India. In France you can sit. So Srila Prabhupada asked, "Are there any snakes?" And one devotee misunderstood. He understood lakes. He said, oh yes, Srila Prabhupada, there is a big one just down there. And Prabhupada said, yeah, a big one just down there. And everyone was laughing. And then the GBC said, and then the devotee said, oh yes, Srila Prabhupada, there is a big one just down there. And everybody was laughing. And when the devotee understood the misunderstanding, he became red, he never talked. It was funny. Funny incident with Srila Prabhupada. Okay, Mahatma Prabhu, and then if I have 10 minutes more, I will tell something more.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I wanted to talk about some of the mystical things, a few mystical things that happened to me. As Mananath Prabhu is saying, that there's the Prabhupada that you see with your eyes, which appears a little bit like an ordinary person, and there's something deeper, a person with shaktis and powers that sometimes we don't always see. Because Prabhupada was very careful to present himself like an ordinary person. And if he ever exhibited anything other than ordinary, he would try to cover it or apologize. So he didn't want to create a personality cult around him as some mystic and then get people to become devotees because he has some mystic power. But I had a couple of experiences, my own, 3 experiences of his mystic power in my life. At least I think it's his power. You can judge for yourself. The first was, I was appointed as temple president in Vancouver, Canada. I was living in San Francisco. And San Francisco is on the west coast of America, and Vancouver is in Canada, which is above the border on the west coast. And I had been a devotee 8 months, and somehow or other, I had been appointed temple president. And it was an extremely difficult service for me because I didn't like to manage, and the devotees in the temple were very difficult to get along with. I don't want to describe the details, but more or less it was hell. On steroids. It was really bad. And I was in a lot of anxiety, and I really didn't want to be there because there were only a handful of us. And the temple I came from, there were like 20 brahmacharis, and it was a very, very inspiring temple. And that was the place to be, San Francisco. It's like New York, San Francisco, Boston, LA. In 1970, those were the places to be. That's where the action was. And in Vancouver, there were 3 brahmacharis, and all I could say is very heavy characters. One of them actually left and told Prabhupada to surrender to another guru. And it was like just strange. So I was trying to tolerate the situation. We didn't have any money. I didn't know from month to month how we would pay the bills. It was just like somebody would join the day the rent was due and just say, here's, the money, or here's my guitar. And I'm like, this 19-year-old who's never managed anything. And I'm deep anxiety how to keep this program going on. So I had been there long enough that to stay longer I would have to get some kind of permanent residency in Canada. But that was during the war in Vietnam. And a lot of Americans were going to Canada, young boys who were eligible to be drafted. They were going to Canada because if they got into Canada, they couldn't be drafted. It was somehow the U.S. law. If you were living in Canada, you wouldn't be drafted. So lots and lots of young people who didn't want to go to Vietnam would go to Canada. So they were giving a lot of green cards to young American boys. So I went to the lawyer to discuss, and the lawyer said, you're not going to get in, it's just everybody's trying to get in, it's not possible. And in my mind I thought, well, that's great, because I want to go back to San Francisco, but I want to do it in an honorable way. So the honorable way is to apply, as my authority said, apply for your residency. If my residency is rejected, then I'll have to go back and it'll be honorable, or you couldn't stay. And I didn't want to just leave and run away like a weakling. It didn't look good and it wasn't the right thing to do. So when he said, "You're not going to get it," I said, "Great." But I did all the paperwork because I did everything. I got money, they sent me money, which I would send back because you had to show money. How to get some recommendations, what's your qualification, what will you do. It didn't look good. I was a university dropout. What was I going to do in Canada? Live off the welfare department? It didn't look good. So I filled out all the papers, and then what I did was I drove into Canada, which temple's like 30 miles or half hour from the border. So I drive into America. Then I turn around and I come across the Canadian border and I say, I want to get permanent residency, and I give them my papers. And this was a very happy day for me because I thought, when I go through, they're going to look at my papers and say, "Loser, this is a joke. Why even wasting your time trying to get in our country? You got no credentials, you're a high school, college dropout, you have no job. Everybody's trying to get into Canada to dodge the draft." So it was a happy day for me. So my expectation was, I'll come through the border, they'll look at that and they'll go, "Sorry," and I'll be, "Oh, it's okay." And I'll pretend to be sad and I'll be like ecstatic that, in the next few days, I can go back to San Francisco and be sane, because I was really in deep anxiety. So, to my remembrance, the border guy, it was like a winter night, and he was alone. To my remembrance, he took the papers and came back 3 minutes later, which meant to me, he just looked at him and said, "This is a joke, here's your papers." And he came back in 3 minutes and says, "Here's your permanent residency." And at that point I knew Prabhupada had just done something mystical and covered him. And previously to that, Prabhupada wrote the GBC, and he said, Mahatma is the right man for Vancouver. So he's the right man now. If I'm the right man, if that's what Prabhupada wants, he made the arrangement, because there's no way it should have happened. And while I was in that intense anxiety doing that service, which later became much better, because all those devotees left. And we had made like 15 devotees in the next year. It was amazing that we made them and just joined. Amazing things happened. But during that period, what I was going through, what I would say was more intense anxiety than I'd ever experienced in my life. What the card says, "Chant Hare Krishna and your life will be sublime." Well, my card said, "Chant Hare Krishna and your life will be hell." Because that's basically what it was like running that temple. It was like, for me, it was like the closest thing to hell I ever experienced. Just dealing with these devotees and this intense anxiety of just bad relationships, no money. It was the middle of winter, we had no money to buy gloves, we had tennis shoes, it was like no warm clothes. And so Prabhupada comes to me in a dream, in the height of my anxiety, he comes to me in a dream and he's massaging my hands. He's saying, "Everything will be okay." It's like, then you think, why would you remember a dream that took place 45 years ago? Because it was so vivid, and it was so obvious that Prabhupada was coming there. Like he knew what was going on. He was just going to be okay, it'll be all right. It was amazing. Amazingly relieving experience that Prabhupada did that, just relieving my anxiety. Like Prabhupada saying, "I know what you're going through, it'll be okay," like your father, just, rubbing you. So that was the second mystical experience. And the third one was very interesting. When I was young, I used to go to the beach every day during summer, and then I think I stepped on a little piece of glass or something. It developed into a wart. And so my mother, I was like 13, so my mother would bring me to the dermatologist. And the dermatologist had this little device, kind of, what should I say? It was a round device which was sharp, and it kind of scrapes the skin off, so it kind of scraped the wart off. And I'd have that wart scraped off I must have had it scraped off like 40 times. You're just supposed to scrape it a couple times and it's not supposed to come back. So we would go and scrape and it would come back. And then the dermatologist would try putting some liquid to burn it out. And they'd try that and then it would come back. So I joined this at 13. I had this wart cut out like every few weeks and kept going back. And then I became devotee at 19. And so we had taken the first traveling Sankirtan party. I believe it was the first real traveling Sankirtan party that distributed big books. And it was a real phenomenon. We would have distributed, nobody was distributing big books, so we were riding back the temple, and it was like we were on television, radio, books were going out, and we're turning homes into temples, people were joining. It was like amazing. And we were riding back to the devotees in Vancouver, and they were reading these letters and thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. It was like so exciting. Things were just incredible. And they were taking these letters and they were sending them to Prabhupada. The letters I was writing them, I had no idea. They were so excited they were sending them to Prabhupada. So my wife at that time, when they sent that letter to Prabhupada, she said, my husband has a wart on his foot. Do you have any cure for it? Because, to explain, Prabhupada was a pharmacist. He had his ointments, and so sometimes Prabhupada would tell us, do this, do that, use this, use that. And in the early days of the movement, there were cups in the bathroom full of, what was it, calcium carbonate, mustard oil and salt, baking soda, and cloves. I was like, what's that? That's your toothpaste, Prabhu. Okay. That was everybody's toothbrush go into. You know, it's like you become a new devotee, everything changes. So, you know, whatever they tell you. You know, if they told us to sleep on our head, we go, okay, that's what devotees do. We didn't know, isn't it? You know, okay, there's your underwear.